Today we're going to talk about prayer, how content creators pray, how Christian content creators pray. We're going through the leadership skills, right? We're the leadership development, John Maxwell leadership stuff. We're on book 4 of 6, and this section here, we just finished lesson 1, and now we're into lesson 2. Lesson 2 is all about prayer. I think this is such an interesting timing because it's something that I've been convicted about. It's something that we've been talking about on stream. Yesterday we brought up like the parable of the persistent widow, right? We talked about that just kind of out of nowhere, and it just kind of came up, and it's been coming up in my devos, yesterday's devo. All right, let me read this thing. We're going to be talking about praying effectively in pivotal moments. The concept that we're going to be covering, and I'm going to go through, is basically the idea of prayer that isn't habitual, right? What the heart of prayer, especially from the realm of content creation. If you're a content creator, or if you are in ministry, or if you have anything interesting in your life that you feel that God has brought into it, or there's something you want to accomplish, this all connects to it. So if you're not a content creator, just take the thing that you're doing whenever I say content creator and just stick you in it, and it'll all apply just fine. So let's start with a quick illustration. What do you do before creating content? Imagine you're getting ready for your big content creator project. It's a new video, art portfolio, and a new podcast concept. You're going to do a streamathon. It's got a big thing happening. It's coming, right? You get your equipment set up, your software's open, you get your references lined up, you curate your playlist of music so you got your energy going. You post it on social media to let your followers know that something amazing is happening. You are psyched up and ready to go and prepped. Lists on the wall, post-it notes properly placed. It's really fun. It's exciting. It's good to get those juices flowing. And it's really easy at that point to kind of jump into creating, right? We wake up, and I feel this temptation too all the time. I walk in here, I look at my desk, and there's lots to do. There's post-it notes, and there's emails, and there's all kinds of stuff. And it's just really, really easy to walk in, skip past the Bible, skip past the Devo, skip past the connections, skip past all that stuff, and go straight to work, because it's work. I'm doing work for God. It's what God called me to do. Therefore it counts, right? And I end up getting caught up in doing the thing for God instead of actually connecting to him and talking to him. But continue the story, right? But then halfway through the project, something goes wrong. Your software crashes. You lose hours of progress. Maybe you feel ill. You have to close the stream. Someone comes in and interrupts you. Frustration kicks in. Now you're scrambling to handle the situation. You try to recover your work, try to recover your attitude, and all that fun and excitement that you just experienced is out the window. You are at the whim of your feeling, right? You're excited when you start, and you push past all the anything that would center you into getting started. Then something goes sideways, and it throws you off, and now you feel, like we talked about, that sense of ownership that now I can fall apart. Now, it's not fair, and I can emotionally compensate or whatever for these feelings. Let's say you're streaming along and you're doing an interview for your podcast. You're having an amazing discussion about whatever, and then out of nowhere, somebody in chat or the person you're recording with just kind of throws out something that catches you off guard. You're not prepared for. Maybe it's not appropriate or something. It ends up being serious, difficult, emotional, argumentative. You're not prepared for it. So what do? And more often than not, when it comes to these excitement moments or pressure moments or difficult moments, we try to handle it on the fly. We rely on our own ability to try to steer the conversation, fix the problem, come up with an answer, give the advice. But then if you're like me, or maybe you've experienced this, after it's all done, right? You close down the stream, you close down the software, you stop recording the podcast, you turn off the camera, you whatever, step away from the meeting, you walk away from the class. After it's done, you often feel like it fell flat. The answer wasn't quite right. The discussion wasn't as good as it could have been. You didn't get out of the stream what you wanted. The community wasn't as connected as you wanted to. You feel like you missed an opportunity. You got all these pivotal moments during the day of a content creator. Let's just content creator stuff, right? And you felt feelings, but all of those feelings ended up driving you to do something or to avoid something, and then at the end of the day, even though you had all these moments in front of you, at the end of it, you're like, man, I don't think I navigated that right. I don't think I prepared myself properly, and even though I thought I had, and when I started creating, it wasn't quite what I wanted. I got to the end of it, it wasn't quite right. I did the thing that I feel like God wanted me to do, and I had some battles in between, and I felt like maybe God was in some of those battles and helped me out. But by the end of the day, it just didn't feel like this is where I was supposed to be. What can we do when we have those kind of feelings, when we're either preparing ourselves beforehand or facing them as they happen? And the answer really is something that you've heard a million times, and that is prayer. The whole point of what we're going to talk about today is the idea of moving our mind away from being that prayer is how you start a project, or prayer is how you handle emergencies, and to get it into the mindset of it is being essential for every moment, essential for across the project, to be passionate about that prayer as you are about the content that you're making. We talked about this parable, so I thought maybe we'd jump into it. It's the parable of the persistent widow. Let's talk about this. I don't want to. I've already written the script, so I'm trying not to repeat my own script. But let's just kind of talk about this a little bit. Feel free to interrupt before we jump into the actual content of what we're going to talk about, which is really a whole bunch of points we're going to cover over the next bunch of weeks here. I want to start with this scripture because I think it really typifies what I'm trying to say, what I believe God wants us to do when it comes to prayer. So let me read the story of the persistent widow. It says, "Then Jesus told his disciples a parable to show them that they should always pray and not give up. He said, 'In a certain town there was a judge who neither feared God nor cared what people thought. And there was a widow in that town who kept coming to him with a plea, "Grant me justice against my adversary." For some time he refused, but finally he said to himself, "Even though I don't fear God or care what people think, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will see that she gets justice so that she won't eventually come and attack me." I'm sorry, that cannot be what that says. Just one sec. "So she will not beat me down by her continual coming." Okay, that's a weird translation. I don't know what that was. Weird translation. ESV is more correct. Basically, so that she'll leave me alone and not like wear me down like to death simply by showing up all the time, right? And the Lord said, "Listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God bring about justice for his chosen ones who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? I tell you that he will see that they get justice and quickly. However, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth?" This section here, that what we're talking about, is all about persistence, right? It's about that idea of this woman showing up over and over and over and over and over and over until she wears down the judge. And he's like, "I'm so sick of seeing her. She's going to give me a heart attack. She's all I can think about. I need to get rid of her. I'll give her what she wants." And though we can't see God in the judge, because obviously God isn't an unjust judge who doesn't fear God. That's not what it is. The point of the story is that even an evil judge can have his heart moved through persistence. How much more can God, our Father, how much more can the one who loves us be moved by persistence, right? Zach says, "I think about the story of all the time when my kids continue to ask me for things. Do I grant them their wants or not? Yeah, what's good for them?" Exactly. It's a very good point. So the parable of the persistent creator. So here's what I want to do, and I want to put ourselves in her shoes. As Christians, we often start and end our day with prayer. You probably do. It's part of our routine. We ask for guidance in the morning. We thank him when the day is done. But when we get caught up in our work, our school, our life, and the flow of creativity, the excitement of engaging with our audience, it's easy to forget that the driving force behind it all is our desire to spread God's love. right? To impact the world through our content. We think it, we say it, we usually say it on stream to other people, but we have to consider, and this is really where I want you to what I want you to do is to ask yourself whether your prayer life actually reflects it, right? Does it reflect the passion of the desire you have for what you want your content to do? Or is it merely something that you've said before, oh, I feel like God's called me to this, and then you've charged forward to do content, or you're moving into it. Yeah, you'll check in with God at night. Yeah, you check in with God in the morning. And it's, but the rest of the time is basically you doing your thing because you feel like God's got you. My purpose here, my hope, and this is, I'm talking to myself the whole way through, by the way, is that this parable of the persistent widow, she doesn't just ask for justice once or twice. She keeps returning with fervency and determination. It's not just about routine, it's about passion. In the same way, if we're serious about seeing God change lives through our content, then our prayers should match that seriousness. Our passion should drive us to pray, not just at set times, but often as an outflow of our heart's desire. That's why I'm talking about persistent prayer or pivotal prayer. It's different. I agree. It's really important for us to have habitual prayer times in the morning, at night, during our before our food, all that stuff for sure. But the gist of what I'm trying to say, and the message I'm trying to give myself, is to ask the question as to whether my prayer life reflects the passion that I say that I have for the mission that God has given me. Right? I will work myself sick on stream for content. I will work myself sick for taco. I will add hours and hours and hours to my day and, go way too far to the point of hurting my health while working on all these things. But the question is my prayer life reflective of that kind of passion, or have I decided that it's through my own effort and my own pressure that I'm going to be doing this? I know for me, my experience is that I will often work harder and not pray harder. Sorry. Right? I will often work harder and not pray harder. I will opt for my own strength instead of seeking God. It's what I do. I'll pause here and ask you if you've experienced the same thing. Are you the kind of person who, when things are going down and when you've got things going, is whether positive, negative, when you're excited about something, when content's going well, do you tend to be the person who just charges forward and like, thanks God, I've got it from here, pew, and you just go? Or does your passion push you towards prayer? I often think about that quote from Martin Luther where he says something like, I've got so much to do today, I had to wake up 3 hours just to pray about it all. 3 hours early just to pray about it all. Right? That idea. I always find that sounds so pious, and maybe even like an exaggeration. But the idea being that if God's going to be part of all of this, then I need to make sure that he's part of all of this. And if I'm serious about what I want to do and what he wants me to do, why aren't I spending more time checking in with him and making sure that I'm connected to him? Let me get back into chat. You guys are saying, much needed to hear this today. Appreciate it. Me too, man. Me too. Okay, I'm definitely borrowing this for youth group this week. We're discussing being prayer empowered and what that means. So this is right along with that. I'll put it up on my blog so you can have it. Take the whole shooting match. Prayer is just talking to God, but yeah, it's exactly right. The question is not how to pray. I'm not doing that. The question is the energy behind it. That's what we're talking about. God can't be bothered with my insignificant problems. It's funny that, the ones that you call insignificant, I would imagine that he would call significant. And again, I go back to what Samus said about, was talking about childlike faith. There is nothing my 2 to 8-year-old child wouldn't come to me to ask. The most trivial stuff, the most off the top of their head question, the most I'm the first stop, right? They had this feeling, they have this question, they have this answer, they had this thought. They come running to dad. Hey, I got this thing. Hey, can we go get this? Hey, I want that. Hey, can we do this thing? Hey, I had this thought. Hey, what's your answer to this question? Hey, what's your favorite this? You know, like just all kinds of connection, and none of it is insignificant to me, right? I love that I got to connect with my kid. I love that they brought it to me. I love that they spent time hanging out with me and being willing to have these conversations. Can you imagine if your child like only ever came to you when they thought it was super duper important, and they never talked to you otherwise, when they had decided that it was significant enough to come and talk to you? I would be hurt. I would be hurt that they would be afraid, or they would consider that I didn't love them enough, or that I didn't have the energy or the time for them, that they would assume that I didn't want to talk to them about things that aren't critically important. That would show such a poor understanding of my love for them. It would hurt my feelings. Zach says, I've always been one that has been, thanks God, I got it now. But lately, especially after reading about Hudson Taylor, I'm convinced that nothing good comes from me and all things come from the Father. The difference of my level of faith has been transformed. Glory to God. And what ends up, the experience of going, this is what it looks like when it's in my hands, and this is what it looks like when God does it, even though I feel like don't know what's happening, is substantial, right? Once you've built something yourself versus when you see God doing things that are beyond what you could ever ask or imagine, it makes you go, poof, yeah, I shouldn't be doing this myself. My plans are dumb. His plans are so much better. Not insignificant ever, but sometimes I feel like it is. Yeah. I didn't mean that as to believe that God can be bothered by my problems. It was more facetious. Yeah, no, I get it, right? I get it. It was a good point, though. Redeemer says, I've been in the same boat. I'm so invested in what I've been told to do, hyper-focus, that it leaves me forgetting to go to God every step for that very thing. Amen. I'm a stupid child, quoting the Bible. And Redeem J, me too, right? Like, me too. It's really fascinating to me how I can know that what I'm doing is very God-oriented, right? I'm trying to build Taco to serve Christian content creators because I feel like God called me to do that. I'm trying to stream and make content to help change the world because there are people out there that I believe that God wants me to communicate with and to show his love to, right? When I'm not online and I'm not on stream, not Taco stuff, I believe that I exist to serve my family and help be, be to them what God called me to be. That when I'm saying, all of it, I know intellectually that it is all designed and it's all a gift from God. It's all something that I'm supposed to be doing because of him and through him, and none of it would matter, especially considering you guys know that I feel like because of all the stuff I've gone through, I should be dead, drunk, or divorced. You know what I mean? That's just what I should be. But God's grace has taken it through that I'm able to be here. So why then am I not more passionate, more committed to spending time in prayer to God about the things that are important? If I love my community, why don't I pray for them more? If I love my mission and I get to do this stuff, why aren't I praying for it more? If I'm worried about what Taco's going to do and worried about where the money's going to go, worried about whether or not I'm navigating everything correctly, why am I not going to my Father and saying, hey, am I doing this right? And can you help me out and whatnot? Why isn't my first instinct to go running to him and talk to him about it instead of get a new schedule, seek out a new person to talk to, find a book, read an article, double down, make more stuff? Like, why is it? Why is it? And the answer to that question is because it's a spiritual battle, right? The enemy knows, our enemy, the tempter, knows that if we become people of prayer, if we really do abandon ourselves to saying God's going to do what God's going to do when he wants to do it, regardless of how much work I do and regardless of how clever I think I am, then we become a massive threat to him. He knows that. And so therefore, there's a battle for the prayer life. That's why you can work all day long, 12 hours a day. That's why he'll let you do all kinds of stuff for long periods of time. And as soon as you want to go to prayer, as soon as you want to wake up in the morning early or pause things to pray or try to build a habit of, that becomes really, really hard. Suddenly that is a battle. It's a fight. You can't seem to figure out how to do it because it's a spiritual battle. That thing, that prayer, is the thing that's going to change all of it. That's why he fights you on that. He'd rather you burn yourself out working with your community and serving other people and attending all these things. He'd be happy to you to do that as long as you don't check in with God, as long as you don't abandon yourself to him and his plan in prayer. Because then you're in trouble. Then he's in trouble. Sometimes I'm afraid to ask God for something. Every time it seems like I ask God for something, is the one that I should be marrying, or can I have my disability? Most of the time it feels like the answer, honestly, all the time, the answer is no. So I end up being afraid to ask God. But yeah, well, I mean, if the assumption is God always has to do what you want, then yeah, then you kind of stop asking. And if the motivation is, I'm only going to ask if I know that God's going to say yes and give it to me, and I'm not going to ask otherwise, then you're going to end up, yeah, you're going to limit your prayer life for sure. But is that the motive behind prayer? Is that what we're supposed to be doing? Right? Because if prayer is, God's got to solve my problems or I'm not going to ask him, if it's more along the lines of I need to check in with him so I can just have the strength to get through this day, or to have the wisdom to accomplish this, or to know where I'm going to go, or to take one more step, right? Sometimes God doesn't give you the full light to the end of the tunnel, to the end of the path. Sometimes the only thing you get is that next step. And through prayer, he'll show you whatever that next step is, right? Whatever that next step is. And if what we're saying is, God, I'm not going to take one more step forward unless you show me the whole plan. Unless I know the end of the plan is going to go where I want it to, I'm not taking another step. I'm not going to be asking you for anything. I don't want your guidance. I don't want your energy. I don't want your motivation. I don't want your help. I don't want your resources. I don't want you to alter me and change me in any way. What I want is to see the end plan so I can tell you whether or not I like it. Right? That's what we end up saying if what only thing we want is yeses. Are we okay to say, I believe that whatever God's next step is, that one next step is enough for today? Daily bread, as the Lord's Prayer calls it, right? Hello, Just Jay. Good to see you. Dare to Share has an acronym: PRAY. Praise, request, admit, yield. Super helpful in prayer and modeled after the Lord's Prayer. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's a good one. I like that too. Okay, let's keep going. How do Christian content creators seize pivotal moments in prayer? So it's not about the consistency of that passion outflowing in prayer, but about developing the habit of stopping and talking to God during pivotal moments, right? It's not just about having all that energy and that's supposed to move us to prayer. Let's generate that energy. It's also about the habit of stopping and talking to God during pivotal moments. So consider the story of the persistent widow, right? You've got her, she's got the passion, she wants justice, she's going to bug that judge until he gives it to her, but she goes every day. She has a habit. She's built a habit of going to the place, talking to the guy, giving the message passionately, and then making sure that she does that every time, every day. So it's kind of a both and, right? It's not just, I wish I had the energy to pray and I wish I was just motivated to pray. It's also going, when I feel that, when that happens, I'm going to pray. It's the obedience of going, I feel it. For example, say there are times in your stream or in your life or in your content or in your day or in your whatever preparations, the habit of going, I'm just going to pause and talk to God about this right now, just for a second, it can be really hard to do because it feels like you're throwing momentum. It can be embarrassing, right? You know what, guys? I can't talk about this right now. I'm just give me a minute to pray about this. That's really hard to do. You can feel like you're being super pious, or you can feel like you're being, people are going to misunderstand. Or for that matter, people are going that you are bugging God because you're bringing up so many things, right? Can we build the habit? Can I build the habit of going, you know what? I just need to talk to God more. during these times, during these moments. Build the habit. So you guys know the story of George Mueller, presumably. He's the man known for he ran orphanages in England with no steady income, right? He didn't have guarantee of where money was going to come from so that he could have a budget and be like, okay, this is how I'm going to feed all the kids. This is where I'm going to go. And he kept opening orphanages. And he just never really had the way that we would normally do it. And that is, make sure you secure your funding, secure your building, make sure you got a 1-year plan, make sure you got the budget and the minutes and all the rest of that in place. He just lived moment to moment, day to day, trusting that because he was doing what God wanted him to do, God would follow through. There's a story about one day where he had no food left to feed the children. You've probably heard this before. They're in the orphanage. They come out, they look at dinner, they open the door, the cupboard, and they're like, oh, that's empty. And he says to the people, go sit at the table. Go sit at the table. Set the table, go sit at the table. And I think in my mind, I would have panicked. I know, because I'm in the middle of panic mode right now. Like, I'm legitimately freaking out about what do I do about this and what do I do about that, the future, the stuff, the opportunities, the life. I do. Hi, Mountain. Good to see you, man. What did George Mueller do? Right? He did something that we would struggle with, or at least I would. He just prayed and then waited. Like, God, we need some food. The kids need food. They need food. And I really could, we don't know where it's coming from, but we know it's going to come. So we're just going to sit here and wait till you feed us. He didn't stress out. He didn't scramble. He didn't go call a bunch of people waiting for help. He just prayed and waited. How's God going to provide? And that's the thing we've been talking about a lot, right? A lot, which is that idea of waiting to see what God will do. Not running forward, not asking for advice, not pushing our way around, not simply trying to gather resources, not making the perfect plan, just pausing and waiting. I wonder what God's going to do with this, and waiting on it. He did. Moments later, there was a knock at the door. It was the local baker, and he felt led to wake up earlier the night before, right, and bake bread so he could go donate it. He knocks on the door. Here's bread. I just felt like God wanted me to bring you some bread. Shortly after, like literally very close, moments after, a milkman came to the door. His cart had broken down outside the orphanage, and he's like, I need to get rid of this milk. It's broken. It's going to go sour. I need to give it to somebody. Hey, can you guys use it here at the orphanage? Right? And they sat down and they had milk and bread for breakfast. As Christian content creators and everybody else, right? Everybody else, we often face our own pivotal moments like that. Not just emergencies, but throughout the creative process. Whether it's before stream or during this emotionally charged interaction, or we get writer's block, or we're invited to a conference, or to collaborate with someone, or we're hitting burnout, whatever it is, those moments, we have the choice to either panic or freak out or try to make a new plan or bring the strength to ourselves and run forward and add to the calendar and run out and get something else, or to stop and to pause and to pray and to center and go, okay, God, I don't know what you're going to do, but I want to know, I'm going to wait on you, right? What do you want me to do with this? How are you going to provide? I don't know what to do. I know for me, when I have stopped and waited, God has always provided. When I've stopped and waited, God has always provided. When I've ran forward and got excited and started doing things, I've felt very stirred up, very worried, very, very out of control, very, very like not knowing what's going to happen. Right now, as I speak, I can feel the sense of conviction, in that one of the things I'm trying to do consistently when it comes to the NCMS or conference, or seeing all this stuff happen at Reach or Taco, or all the speaking engagements I get to do, or stream, or numbers, or algorithm, and all these things that I've got in my head, I am planning and thinking, and how can I do this, and what can I do better, and what should I, how can I make stream better? What do I need to change? What calendar do I need to change? What is the perfect plan that I can make up? Who do I need to ask? Where do I get the money from? Who am I supposed to talk to? How many emails do I have to send? What way can I manipulate the situation so that more people know about it, so that things can happen, right? Yeah, part of it is prep. The idea of nobody's going to call to help me if they don't know I exist. So that's part of it. I get that. I totally do. And doing the work is part of it too. Showing up, do the work, that's part of it too. But I know that part of the reason I'm so stirred up and have been so stirred up is because some part of me has decided the only way this is going to work is if I try harder. That God's in it. God's called me to do it. And the only way he's going to bless me is if I push harder. And the truth is, if this is true, it's not about me pushing harder into the work. It's about me depending more on him. It's about being that persistent widow that keeps going to God, being like, God, I don't know how to get the money. I don't know what to do next. I don't know what conference you want me to go to. I don't know how to make any of these contacts. I don't know how to get more people to come. I don't know how I'm going to make a partner on Twitch. I don't know if you even want me to do that. I don't know what's happening when chat goes dead. I don't know what's going on, God. I don't understand. And instead of me freaking out, it's going, I guess I'll try to be consistent, keep doing what I'm doing, and listen to God. Wait on God. Wait on God. Ask him. It's hard. It's really hard. It shouldn't be hard. It should be like my kid running up to me like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you come help me with homework? Or I don't know what's going on. I don't understand. Can you tell me what's going on outside? There's a storm and I don't really get what's happening. Are we in trouble? Can you just tell me, make me feel better? My kids would do that. Why don't I? Kin says, I say this because even though I have plenty energy, yet I have no motivation to continue streamer Q&A. I'm working on a big important update to make it easier to use. It involves a ton of work to transition from the old config system to the GUI solution. But whenever I open the software, I'm just like, eh. Part of that could be spiritual, could be spiritual. And you're right, Mountain. You're right. We never know God's plan, at least not the full extent. You're right. But part of it could be spiritual in that, the reason that apathy that comes or that whatever feeling comes because you haven't been given enough encouragement or because you feel as though you're not being treated correctly or whatever. And that servant-heartedness that you started it with, that idea, I want to serve people, has abated because you expected more rewards, expected more people to pat you on the back. It could be that the enemy knows the danger of you putting this thing together and it could bless a lot of people. So he's trying to pull the rug out from underneath you energy-wise so that you don't do it. Because if you do it, it's gonna end up changing and helping a lot of people. And it could be that you have pushed so hard on the project when your own energy, you ran out of energy. You've been using your own strength and now you don't have any more. And your job now isn't to push harder and make it happen, but to rest. Be thankful for what you've done and then wait to see what God does with what you've already done. And if he brings you around to more energy or more time or more help or whatever, then you can get back to it, right? It's not always about the enemy wants to stop me, or it's not always about the I don't want to do it anymore. Sometimes it's a complicated thing. It's worth thinking about, worth praying about, worth considering. Yes, Zach. With my job, I know that I'm helping people by doing a service, if that makes sense. I don't do it for reward, but that does come with burnout. Yeah, and that's it. And we've talked about this with you. We've talked about this with Turkey. We've talked about this with everybody else. And that is, if you work in your own strength and only your own strength, if you trust on your own intelligence, your own wisdom, your own self-control, your own all that stuff, you don't have enough. You're going to fail. You're going to fall. You're going to falter. You're going to trip. You're going to use yourself up. And then you'll be no good to anybody because we are not enough. God did not create us to be enough. He created us to require other people's help and require his inspiration and his strength. It's literally built into us. It's like if you held up a machine that has that you're like, okay, this thing works, it needs batteries, and it needs some oil. That's how it works. I need to grease it so that it continues to go. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And I need to give it energy from an outside source because it doesn't have it within. You're built like that. You need to grease the wheel. You need to have something to keep you going. That's why you need people. That's why you need folks in your life who are going to help you out. And you do not have the energy to carry forward. You need to find it from an external place. And that's from God. You simply do not have it within you. If you take that and you try to run that machine, whether it be without God's help or without doing it God's way, you're just going to end up burning yourself out, wrecking the machine, running out of energy, running on low power, and eventually not being able to function because you're not built for that. You're built to do things with his strength and with others. Too. Okay, final thought. We're going to pause there. We are going to come back around. I've got I think it's 6 or so more points we're going to cover over the coming weeks when it comes to this topic of prayer and content creation. But I think that's good enough for today. We're going to talk about how mature, godly, useful people actually do pray, what it looks like. And then we're going to try to figure out how we can think about it, how we can practice it. So I'll close with this. This is the sort of final statement to walk away from. And that is, at the heart of everything we do is content creators and anyone else, firefighters and police officers and editors and programmers and everybody. But for us, right, we as content creators, if you believe that God called you to it, our desire is to see God move through our work. Whatever that means. That's what we want. If that's true, then that passion should fuel our prayer. Prayer can be a struggle for a lot of people. I face it too. But we cannot let prayer merely become that habit or an afterthought or something we just turn to when things go wrong. That is good. It is good when we make it into a habit. It is good when we pray after we've forgotten to pray. It is good when we turn to God when things go wrong. I'm not saying not to do that. What I'm saying is that if we want God's love, if we want everything to be about him and the mission to be about him, then prayer needs to be the heartbeat of our creative process. It needs to be the consistent connection to the one who called us to this ministry, right? And then that way it is a connection to that prayer that will give you the power to be able to actually accomplish what God wants you to do. I've repeated myself a million times, but that's what I want to challenge you with. I'm challenging myself with too. Let's talk about this. Do you struggle? Number one, do you struggle with this? Have you ever had time where you spent, in prayer instead of running around, and did you see something happen? Have you ever run forward and seen something not work out? Right? Because you didn't pray? Let's talk about that stuff. Let's just kind of talk about prayer. Yeah. As a man, I know I'm strong, but the Lord is stronger and can give and take my strength. Yeah. Sometimes, and that's the truth, Mountain, he will take the strength. He will take your strength because he wants to teach you a greater strength. There are people out there who felt strong, intelligent, like super capable, and they lost it. And it was only then when they realized that was actually getting in the way of their true strength. Best to learn that before that happens.